Hi, Andy Thompson, Yetter Farm Equipment, and we are looking at the Yetter Strip Freshener CC. In this case, the CC stands for cab control, so this particular model here is going to allow you from the cab to be able to adjust almost everything on the entire unit. So we're going to talk about some of the features and also some of the adjustments for operating the Strip Freshener CCs. So first of all, to kind of go through the units front to back, of course everything is on a set of parallel linkage. The parallel linkage allows us to have every row to follow our field contours, accurate depth control and adjustments. So going from the front to the back, we have a floating row cleaner up front. You'll notice that we also have an air cylinder on that. That allows us to be able, from the cab, to be able to adjust pressure on that and thus performance of the row cleaner to be able to move the residue out of the way, get us a clean strip, and then also allow everything on the row unit to operate in the best fashion possible. Behind that, we get into our front cutting coulter. That front cutting coulter is going to run the same depth of everything on the unit. Really the role of that front cutting coulter is to cut our center line, allowing the rest of the working features on there to operate in the zones that they need to in the best way possible. Then we come on back, we get into our gauge wheels. These depth gauge wheels here, similar to a lot of planter row units, what we're going to do is we're going to set a stop so that the gauge wheels themselves can actually flex up to that stop, and then that's going to allow us only to penetrate that deep. So we are using spoke gauge wheels to make sure no interference and make sure no soil buildup or anything that can flow out from the wheels. And how we make adjustments on that, this right here is going to be our stop. Currently we have that set in the deeper range up here, about 4 inches, but our range is really from 1.5 to 4 inches deep. We are adjusting that with this screw assembly right here. And I mentioned that almost everything is cab adjusted. This is the only thing on the row unit that is not adjusted from the cab. We actually have a screw assembly right here. You put like a 7/8 wrench on that, be able to turn this screw assembly. That's going to change our stop, which then allows our gauge wheels only to come up to that stop. So adjust that on the row unit. Coming on back, we get into the back set of shark tooth blades. This is really the main working zone, the main working parts of the row unit. This is what's really doing all of our tillage. These shark tooth blades are at a slight angle, which allows us to be able to work the soil profile and pull that in just slightly. Keeps everything contained within our strip. We also have different options for fertilizer placement, which is typically in this area right here, either in between or on the outside of this, depending on what options we're looking for. We come on back to the back portion and we get into our rolling basket. This is a flat blade rolling basket. The idea of the rolling basket is to be able to finish our strip. So after we have worked the soil to whatever depth that we want, that we have it set at, it's pulling all that soil in. Our basket comes through. It's really going to firm that up. It's going to release a lot of those air pockets. So that gives us the ability, if we choose, to be able to plant onto these strips right after we make the strips. So something a little bit unique with this style of a strip till unit allows us not to put a lot of air into there, thus to be able to plant on it very quickly. You'll notice an air cylinder that is onto this. That also is adjusted from the cab, which allows us to be able to change the force that's on that basket to be able to change the performance of that rolling basket. Up on the parallel linkage, you may notice we also have a airbag inside of here. The airbag is going to control our downforce of the unit. Of course, we need to maintain enough downforce so that our gauge wheels have a constant contact. We have force down so that we get a consistent depth without putting too much force on that and creating any compaction or issues with that being too solid. That is also adjusted from the monitor in your cab. Now your monitor in your cab that you'll actually see right here, and you can refer to our document as well, talking about some of these air pressures. But basically we have 3 different rows of adjustments here. The first one, left to right here, is our row cleaners. So really we're going from the front of the unit to the back. So we have the row cleaners first. Then we have row unit downforce. That's the main airbag. And then the last part, or the back part here, is our rolling basket. So a unique feature on the Strip Freshener CC is we actually have on the row cleaner and on the rolling basket, we have the ability to put downforce or up force on those two features, or on the row cleaner and the rolling basket. We do that by selecting with these selector valves right here. Of course, we said row cleaner here, so if we have this pushed, notes right here, push is for down row cleaner. If I pull this knob, now I'm going to be on up row cleaner, or up force. You can do either or on it. And really what we're going to do, we have two different valves right here. We would pull that knob out, turn it left or right. If I have this selected, so this is pushed in, I would have this selected as down force, so it's going to be my down control, and then whatever pressure we're stating or showing right there, that's what our adjustment, our current adjustment is going to be. At any point in time, if I want to apply up pressure, I can pull that, and then now I'm going to use the up valve, and then my gauge is going to refer to whatever pressures that I've selected at that time. Moving on down to the next row, we have our center row. Now over here to the left, you'll notice it'll actually say tank, and that's our tank pressure. So our supply tank, this has a valve there showing us what our supply is, just to maintain that we're getting an adequate supply of air pressure to all the row units. As we go to the right over here, this is our row unit down pressure. That's the main airbag up on the parallel linkage. So we're going to be able to pull that and turn that. Now we only have down pressure here, no up force, but as we turn that, that's going to show us how much down force air pressure we have. If at any point in time we want to increase that, we simply turn the knob to the right. If we want to decrease it slightly, we can turn it back to the left. If for any reason we choose that we want to make a large change, perhaps a 20 or 30 pounds per row unit change, we have what we call as a row lock, which is another knob that when we pull that out, that will expunge a lot of air quickly, so that way we can make a change fairly quick. Push that back in, and then we can dial that in exactly. Then the bottom row right here is going to be our rolling basket, or RB as we refer to it on the monitor here. Same thing as we had on the row cleaner. We have a selector knob pushed or pull. And we're going to use the corresponding valve. So if I have that pushed, which most of the time we'll have that pushed, and then our down force right here, we're going to be able to turn that left or right, and that gauge will tell us what pressures we're running. If at any point in time we want to raise our baskets, I can pull that. I'm using this selector valve, and again my pressures are showing me what pressures we're demanding to each row. Now some initial settings, and you can refer to the guide that we've supplied as well. Some initial settings on this. When we first go to the field, we're going to want to make sure that we start relatively low and then work our way up to what is adequate. Certainly our numbers may change from one condition to the next. Certainly if we go from a worked ground, perhaps we already had some strips and we're using these to refresh, which some people do, their numbers are going to be a little bit lighter. If we're making new strips ahead of the planter, or even quite some time ahead of the planter, the ground maybe is a little bit firmer, we may need to be using a different range of numbers, putting more pressure to it. But in any one of those options, we're probably going to want to change or start with all of these numbers fairly low and then work up to what we need. So you can refer to the guide that's going to show us where we're going to start and then kind of what our normal operating ranges are going to be.
Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to check out our complete Yetter Solution Sitter playlist at YouTube. And as always, we're here to help you find profitable solutions for your operation. So, if you need more information or have a topic idea for a future episode, drop an email to solutions@yetterco.com.